All right, in this explainer, we're diving into a really fascinating and frankly pretty unusual study from 2022. It sits right at the intersection of, well, wellness technology and quantum physics.
So it all kicks off with a question that sounds like it's pulled straight from science fiction, right? What if you could actually influence someone's health, their physical state, their actual blood from miles and miles away with nothing more than a picture of them? It's a bold, bold premise. So let's see how this study claims it actually tested it. And this is the object at the very heart of it all. It's called the Leela Infinity Bloc. And according to the research we're about to unpack, this metallic-looking cube is supposedly the key to that whole long-distance influence thing. Okay, so to really get a grip on this experiment, we need to break down two things first. One, what exactly is this device supposed to be? And two, how in the world did the researchers even measure its effects? So what's really interesting here is the specific language they use. The study, and it's quoting the manufacturer here, describes the block as a quantum energy generator. It apparently creates a quantum space to, and I'm quoting, harmonize energy and neutralize negative frequencies. It's really important to note we're using their exact terminology here because it's so central to what they're claiming. So that's the device. The second piece of the puzzle is how they measured any change. The study used a technique called dark field microscopy, which is also known as live blood analysis. Basically, you take a fresh drop of blood and you immediately look at it under a microscope. This lets you see what the red blood cells are doing in real time. Are they flowing freely or are they all clumping and sticking together? This was their main observation tool. Okay, now let's see how these two pieces, the block and the blood analysis, come together in the experiment itself. And this was not your standard lab setup, not at all. The whole study was designed to test the block's effect over a pretty significant distance, about 8 kilometers, which is around 5 miles. Which, leads to the obvious question, how on earth do you even set that up? How do you test a physical device on a person who is literally miles away from it? Well, the protocol they followed is very specific. So here's the play-by-play. First, they take a before blood sample. Simple enough, gets them a baseline. Then, right then and there, they snap a photo of the subject. An assistant then takes that photo and drives it 8 kilometers away where the Leela Infinity Bloc is waiting. That photo is placed inside the block for exactly 15 minutes. And the second that window is up, another blood sample, the after sample, is taken from the original subject who hasn't moved an inch. Now, this part is absolutely crucial, and it's a direct quote from the study. The participants, they knew they were having blood drawn, sure, but they had zero idea when their photograph was being put in the block. The researchers say this completely removes any chance of a placebo effect. They argue it might even be more reliable than a standard double-blind trial because of it. Okay, so that's the whole setup. You've got a person, a photograph, and a device, all miles apart. The big question is, did anything actually happen? Did their blood actually change? To make this a bit more real, the study gives us individual results. So let's zoom in on one specific case they highlighted, a subject they call P10. And wow, this is the core finding right here. The before sample showed what they describe as strong gel roll formation, which just means the red blood cells were all clumped together, really restricting blood flow. But in the after sample, taken right after that photo was in the block, they report the clumping was completely abolished, not reduced, abolished. And the cells had become very active. The difference they're describing here is pretty stark. So based on results like the one we just saw, what did the researchers end up concluding from this very unusual experiment? Their conclusion was pretty direct. They state that the Leela Infinity Bloc showed it was able to harmonize disturbances and blockages in the blood, all through this protocol that only used a photograph from a distance. So how could this possibly work? Well, the study actually proposes a mechanism. It claims that information is transferred from the hyperspace of the test object to the hyperspace of the person. This is their explanation for that non-local, action-at-a-distance connection between the device and the subject. And all of this leaves us with one final, pretty big question. The study keeps using the word harmonization to describe the effect. Now, whether you look at this with a ton of excitement or a whole lot of skepticism, the ideas here are definitely pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible. It raises some really fascinating questions about the connection between information, energy, and our own bodies.